Welcome. This video is the first in a series called Market Access for Digital Entrepreneurs, brought to you by SEDA, the Small Enterprise Development Agency, with support from the European Union. In this series, we have assembled a range of entrepreneurs, industry experts, and subject specialists to share their insights and experience from different angles about commercializing startup digital products and services. These videos are first and foremost for entrepreneurs, but we hope they will also be of interest to incubator and hub managers and business advisors. In this webinar, we will have a look at the commercial drone industry in South Africa. To tap into this market locally and internationally, you need to understand it, where the opportunities are, and how to take advantage of them, as your success is determined by your understanding of the market, your product's competitiveness, and the effectiveness of your sales methodology. It's a high-growth sector with rapidly growing use cases, so it's fair to say that the sky's the limit. Let's begin.
The commercial use of drones, or unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, as they are also known, has started to gain popularity as new and exciting applications for this technology emerge. We are seeing an uptake in the commercial applications of drones. It is estimated that by 2025, drones could create 100,000 jobs and have an economic benefit of just over 82 billion US dollars. The commercial applications for drones are vast, and they span multiple industries, including construction, real estate, surveying, journalism, weather tracking, law enforcement, emergency services, as well as insurance. Using drone technology to complete dangerous jobs, such as inspecting power lines and oil pipelines, has the potential to reduce workplace injury and save lives. I think as SEDA, we have also seen how it has changed what we are doing in terms of our own incubation centers or our digital hubs that we are currently assisting or funding. Some of these incubators that is within the drone space, and specifically looking at our Firi incubator in Mpumalanga, who is at the forefront of drone development, where they are looking at not only the development of drones, but they're also looking at, pilots and drone pilots specifically, and training drone pilots so that they can become commercial drone pilots and they would be able to create jobs within that incubator. Then we have our SBTI in Botshabelo in the Free State, where we also look at drone development. We have our Africa Beyond 4IR, which we also assist and fund. And they really do amazing things within the township economy, where it's looking at, not only drone development, but they're looking at other areas such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and big data.
If you have a business that could use actionable data created by a drone, and you have somebody somewhere in the world already doing what you need, then you might want to start thinking about drones in your business. The current licensing situation has really created the Wild West in South Africa. There are far more people operating outside of the purview of the South African Civil Aviation Authority, but the real thing being oversold is training. There is a pilot glut in South Africa, far too many RPLs, not enough legal companies to work for. South Africa has fallen far behind the rest of the world and continent, and here comes the first opportunity for change and to lift, and that's a pun intended, jobs. Instead of demanding startup businesses have multiple employees to fill positions, all of them needing salaries, and instead of taking not only a great deal of money, but time to issue remote operator certificates, remote pilots licenses, the South African Civil Aviation Authority could adopt a light touch approach for smaller drones, just like the USA, EU, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. More successful African countries have done just this, accepting qualifications from overseas and allowing startups to get going at a much lower cost with less red tape. You will not take much less than 2 years to get up and running if you apply to the South African Civil Aviation Authority tomorrow. But either way, you're going to need kit, whether you start here or overseas. The only thing that's really important is to create actionable data from the platforms you fly. How flashy the brochure is or eye-wateringly expensive the machine might be does not matter a jot if you can't use the numbers. Understand exactly how much your market is willing to pay for those numbers. I'm not going to pay top dollar for fancy NDVI images of my farm when I can pull 300-meter resolution data for free from the Copernicus satellite every 3 days. A complete understanding of not only the cost of the software required to create the output, but its strengths and weaknesses should guide platform buying decisions, not that glossy brochure. Realize that your drone has a shelf life of about 3 years. As long as you don't crash it, make sure parts are really easily available if you do. You'll probably be spending as much money on computers and software powerful enough to run the software of choice as on the drone itself. Again, that'll need updating every 2 or 3 years. Be very well aware of the implications of the POPI Act in South Africa and GDPR in the EU. You will need a workflow that is able to share outputs in a way your end user can view but not overshare. Large, fast, secure web hosting is not a luxury. So what about developing into the market? Let's suppose you've got an amazing solution to a problem that to your knowledge is not out there yet. How difficult would it be to create a drone? Bring on board some of that young talent out there that has the experience of 3D printing and CAD design. You should even be able to simulate the flight attributes and structural strength of your machine before it ever leaves its digital domain. Look for pilots from the model aircraft world. South African Model Aircraft Association flying certificate holders have had to make mistakes and know about taking a bin bag to the flying field should the worst happen. They're much more talented flyers than somebody who's just moved a DJI platform in a square. If your idea includes flying fixed-wing platforms beyond visual line of sight and landing in confined places, that SAMA pilot is exactly who you need. You can develop and test platforms and sell them overseas today. The only really exciting drone sector in Africa that I see at the moment is the delivery sector. I'm slightly biased as that's been my thought for years. We all know that 365 days of the year transport infrastructure is missing in many places. Deliveries are just one small part of the impact of new technologies. Creating platforms in Africa, for Africa, that can handle tough conditions Silicon Valley folks just don't understand has to be a good thing. It's also creating highly skilled workers that will be able to turn their heads, hands even, to make other products useful for their communities, in their communities.
So, I guess to kind of sum it up, if you look at other cool sort of great sort of tech companies, if you keep looking, and I guess building on the gentleman from Nelson Mandela Bay Innovation Hub, it's so hard when you keep thinking of an idea, when you try to keep look for an idea, you're kind of waiting for the opportunity to sort of land in your lap. And sometimes it's not like that. You find opportunities in the most random of places. And actually, speaking to how we got started as a business, I did accounting at university, and I was selling a different kind of technological product on a mine. And I walked onto a mine site one day, and there was this broken drone in 10,000 pieces lying all over the floor. And I said to the chief surveyor at the time, I said, Jacques, what happened here? And he said to me, he said, look, Chris, he said, these very slick salesmen from Canada came over. They sold us this drone, $50,000 US, and they told me it's the easiest drone in the world to fly. And I said, but Jacques, what's it doing here all over the place? And he said, look, it was easy to fly. It just wasn't so easy to land. And I said to him at that time, I said, Jacques, I said, look, we know nothing about drones, but how about instead of you operating that drone, we take it over and we figure this out for you. And that really was the birth of RocketMine. And it starts is that it really just sometimes hits you when you're not looking for it in the most obvious of places. So I guess if we sort of look at if I kind of say how we started and how we kind of looked at this, at validating this business model, we were one of the very first 3 service providers to start, way back when the drone rigs sort of started. Actually, our first operations manual was 650 pages long. Even before the regulations came out, we knew that CAA was going to implement, and but they didn't know where to sort of go. And we got some great speakers like Sam Twala today, who was one of the original guys who developed those regulations. So really looking forward to hearing him today. And really, Sam sort of tells you the early days, we sort of walked in there with this really big operations manual. No laws had been published yet. And it really was just about, I guess, sort of this forward, sort of not viewing the CAA as an enemy, but rather sort of going to them saying, look, this is the idea that we have. We're not aviators. Naturally, we're total geeks. How do we get this across the line? How do we meet you in the middle to really find, to allow us to operate safely as well? And I think the big thing, when you look at the drone industry, is that, again, referring to the gentleman from Nelson Mandela Bay, the innovation hub there, it's just so daunting. There are just so many opportunities. And it is so sad sometimes to see where some people go out, they buy a really big drone to sometimes which they think it's a Swiss Army knife of drones that can do anything. But actually, in matter of fact, what we're finding in the drone and the robotics field is that you should only buy a drone for a single applicational purpose. Don't go out sort of buying cannibals to kill flies. It's definitely not the way in terms of how to start in getting into this industry. Whatever you do, pick a niche, find something really small, probably in an industry which you're really starting, be it agriculture, mining, engineering. You should really be in a particular industry that needs a problem that drones or robots can be used to solve real world problems. I think a lot of the big mistakes that entrepreneurs try to make is they have a piece of technology looking for a problem, where you should really rather start with the problem that needs technology to fix it. And then it's just, as sort of Martin was saying as well, it's about building trust as your currency, being consistent and building their reputation and really adding value to other people's businesses and taking them along for the journey. I guess also what was so interesting is, when we started, like say, I came from this accounting and finance background, and I knew nothing about drones and coding and everything else. And the first thing I did was that when I came back from the mine, I walked to the first person in front of me who knew anything to do about computer coding, and that was he's currently our general manager for RocketMine in South Africa, AJ. And AJ was busy coding an app, and I said, AJ, what do you know about drones? And he goes, nothing. And I said, look, we've got this opportunity for a mine. I've bought us a drone. On Monday, we've got to be flying. And he said, great, let's go. And he spent that whole weekend learning the flying and processing, and very similar to what Gary said is it's not just about taking photos, it's about delivering quantifiable data. And in mines in particular, they're interested to learn about volumes and volumetrics. And in agriculture, they want to know what's the production, what's the tons, the hectares, the number of fruits that are coming off the tree. And I guess a lot of people at the time really never sort of gave AJ any credit. They thought, well, why are you going to a software engineer? What's he going to know anything about drones? And I think sometimes it's really important to note that because this is such a long and difficult journey, it's definitely not. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme by any means, and no true business would be. But I guess the idea is that because this whole industry is so fast developing, there is no qualified drone operations manager or drone engineers at this stage. The market overall is still very new and is still growing. So you've got to really look for that talent and look for your co-founders in the most strangest of places and combine your skill set. And essentially, maybe the old adage goes is you want to hire for attitude, not aptitude. because drones right now, and especially because of regulation, it's got a very much a one-to-one ratio in terms of operations. So one pilot, one drone. And I think we will start to see this, the ratio start expanding, one drone to multi-drone and to swarm, is what we've seen. And I think really the idea is that you want to make sure that you're taking the right people along with you. Tip number 3, the true growth and innovation really happens slowly. For many of you, if you've kind of read a book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, it is really about speaking about just, you'll never be able to achieve, a big sort of success all of a sudden in one day. Sometimes they always say you become the 10-year overnight success. And this is really about starting with that particular niche, finding the great people, and really looking at how we can improve our customers' lives and our product and what we have 1% at a time. And that really comes to nearly 40% per year. And when you look back at the end of the year, you'll see that the big differences and the changes that you make. And this really goes to consider it again about where the opportunities lie. With us for example, as a services business, we're always straddling between the horizontal versus the vertical opportunities. And when I say that, it's horizontal opportunities about, what are the new markets? Where do we physically go and set up operations, which is harder than it sounds. Going into places like Ghana, where 300 kilometers of road can take you over 6 hours to drive. It's again, speaking to the delivery opportunity, it's really physically tough going. And then again, looking at the vertical opportunity, saying, well, again, the customers, they don't just want pictures out of the drones, they want real quantifiable data. How do we use these new other emerging kind of technologies like artificial intelligence and combine that with drone data that's collected, and to really offer our customers a solution where there is no current competition. And that's probably my biggest advice that I can give is if you want to get ahead really, really quickly, is find an opportunity or a market where no one else is currently existing. Obviously, you could do your research and find out why there's none. But again, speaking to Martin, if you have an order, just run with it. You pick up the drone, you learn to fly it over the weekend, and you rock up on Monday and you go for it.
Firstly, we offer training. So we have the drone technology skills, we have AI skills, and we have cybersecurity skills. After equipping you with these skills, we then now put you in our incubation model. So for our incubation model, we have 2 particular things that we offer. We offer financial and non-financial support, business development services, and also we have a technical technical team which will provide research and development, prototyping, modeling, simulation, and many more. After this incubation process, we now link you to the market. We have solutions that we offer for mines, and we currently have 25 contracts with nearby mines in the Mpumalanga area. So after completing this training and also after taking part in our incubation process model, we can now link you into our ecosystem. Then some of our success stories, we have a particular company which is called Pegasus that is in our incubation program. So this particular company developed a VTOL business jet, and we are busy assisting them in technical assistance and also facilitating funding. The good news is we are working with the UK government through their innovative program to assist this company, Pegasus. So currently they've received £1 million from that program.
Aerobotics is an Agritech company. We were founded in 2014, and our main focus is providing insights to fruit and nut growers. We use drones and satellite imagery to optimize nutrition, irrigation, and crop protection for our growers. We operate in 18 countries, and we formed relations with over 900 farming operations across 500,000 acres over the world. So what are the challenges that come with traditional farming methods? Firstly, pest and disease damage causes yield losses of between 20 to 30% per year. HLB, or citrus greening, it's a bacteria spread by a small insect called the Asian citrus psyllid. And this disease actually turns fruit bitter and will eventually kill the tree. It's estimated about 5 million citrus trees per year are killed by this disease. And current yield estimates are between 15 to 35% out, causing losses of around $2,000 per acre. So what are the problems with current ways farmers collect data and monitor their orchards? Firstly, labor is expensive, the cost per person is increasing, and the more land you manage, the more hands you need. There's also a low accuracy of managing your farm operations. Especially on larger farms, it's almost impossible to get enough samples per field due to time limitations. And of course, your in-field workers aren't trained agronomists, so their understanding of what is wrong with a tree in a particular orchard is often limited. And farm managers are still using pen and paper to keep track of their farming operations, which is not entirely reliable. So what is our solution at Aerobotics? We are a data analytics company, so we outsource the drone flying completely to licensed and experienced drone pilots. And with our Tree Insights product, we can reconstruct a 3D model of each tree across each farm. And essentially we take thousands of pictures with the drone, and these are all stitched together and geo-reference map layers are added. That means each picture has a GPS coordinate attached to it. And this allows us to build a 3D model of the health, volume, and area of each tree in the given orchard. So we require our pilots to carry 2 cameras, one high-res visual camera and one high-res multispectral camera. We use the MicaSense range for this. So with the visual camera, we can create high-res and visual maps of the orchards, and this helps us to identify individual trees and to provide tree counts. And then once our machine learning algorithms have identified each tree, it'll assign per tree analytics based on that multispectral data, such as tree height, volume, health, etc. Then with all of these insights, we can provide our growers, you can turn these insights into action with our AeroView in-field app. So in the end, a farming business is about what you produce and what challenges you're facing in optimizing your production. And we at Aerobotics try to see how we can help solve these challenges for our growers. We've recently introduced an irrigation insights product, which provides our growers a water stress index measure on a per tree level, which we're really excited about. To ensure that valuable water and resources are being applied uniformly across all plants is very important to growers in order to achieve their optimal yield. And growers make huge investments into precision irrigation systems with not a lot of visibility into how or even if the entire production is receiving the expected amount of water. Our irrigation insights, we can essentially provide a high spatial and resolution view of whether or not water is being distributed uniformly and allow growers to adjust and manage the irrigation systems, maintenance, and scheduling on an ongoing basis. So sometimes it's very evident that specific irrigation lines are red and under stress, and that'll show that an irrigation pipe may be blocked or burst, for instance. So if you see in the image on the left here, this was indicated as these trees were water stressed. The farm manager actually went into the field and they found that these were blocked irrigation pipes. So they were able to rectify that before there would be further damages to the trees. And then the image in the top right, you'll see these trees are also red and are very water stressed. And they actually found there was insufficient water pressure coming to those trees. Then in the bottom here, in the image on the right, you can see there was actually a leak. So the trees were getting too much water. And this is why these tree dots were darker sort of blue. So they're able to rectify that before there was real changes to the tree's performance. So we can identify underperforming areas in your orchard through our nutrition insights. This is a crop stress that's based on the NDRE measurement. And by NDRE, I mean normalized difference red edge measure. And it's essentially a measure of how well does the plant absorb red light. And this is an indication of how active its chlorophyll is, because chlorophyll absorbs the red light and it creates sugars from that, which gives to the plant in order to grow. So how do we do this? As I mentioned previously, we use MicaSense cameras on our drones. These act as eyes in the drone and can capture light that our human eyes can't see. So we use the sensors on the camera to calculate vegetation indices on an orchard level between -1 and 1. So -1 is visualized by red, which indicates that the trees are health stressed. And then 1 is visualized as green, which means the trees are healthy. So in this image here, for example, the trees here on the bottom right aren't absorbing red light as they should be, which is an indication of stress. So we don't know what is causing the stress. It could be nutrient deficiencies in the plant or damage caused by pests and diseases. And what we can highlight specifically is where the problem areas are in the orchard that need attending to. So now that we've identified which areas in the orchard are underperforming, we can turn these insights into action to improve the crop's performance. So we've created these zonal maps, which are based on the tree volume or health in the orchard. In this example, it's based on the tree's area. So we allow our growers to apply nutrition fertilizers or pesticides more specifically to trees that need it, which saves the farmer a lot more time and money. So essentially, if farmers have the equipment, they can get their crop sprayer to apply specific amounts of fertilizer or pesticide to areas that may be more health stressed or smaller in area than others. So here, for instance, the farmer would perhaps apply more fertilizer to the areas in red and less so to the areas in yellow and green, which are bigger in area. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've created a scouting app, and it's great for kind of problem solving when the issues have been identified from our insights. And you can get your farm managers or scouting agents in, and they can record actually what they've picked up if a tree is health stressed, what we flagged on our system. And you can take a picture and you can make notes on that specific tree. Then you can export these results into reports, and then you know specifically what pesticide or fertilizer you need to spray on that tree or area to rectify that issue. So here's just an example. A scouting agent picked up there were thrips on the leaves of this citrus tree. Thrips, they're small insects that can damage plants by sucking the juices and scraping at the fruits, flowers, or leaves. The plants may actually turn pale and eventually die if not treated in time. So the scouting agent picked this up, and then they knew specifically what pesticide they had to spray for this tree in the orchard. For our tree inventory management insights, it's essentially addressing the problem of how well are you utilizing a piece of land. So this can show how many trees are growing and how many trees are missing or dead trees. So you still have today, farmers are going in the field with a quad bike and they're using a clicker and they're manually counting how many trees they have in an orchard. This can take weeks, if not months to do. It's very tedious and also can be very inaccurate. With the drone, we can fly thousands of hectares even in a couple of days, even a week, and only a few days to process that. And we can give an exact idea for the grower of how many living trees you have visualized in blue, and then how many dead trees you have or missing trees visualized in the black dots. So this is our second product we offer. This is the Yields Insight. It's an industry first. And essentially you would have this Yield Insights flight 6 weeks later after your Tree Insights flight, if it's a citrus orchard. So we use the Tree Insights data to plan a flight path for the drone to descend on a random number of trees in the orchard to ensure we get a good representation sample of the orchard. And the drone will be recording video footage of the fruit seen on those trees and neighboring trees in the same row. So here's an example of actually how it works with our yield estimation product. one of the images taken from a drone scout mission on the drone, our fruit annotation model will draw red circles around each fruit that's visible, and it can provide true fruit counts and also estimate the size of each of the fruits. So we can give you fruit monitoring insights and give you harvest efficiencies. So our Yield Insights flight provides size distribution as well as color and also volume predictions of a given orchard, which is essentially replacing growers' current fruit measurement practices on their farms. So week 5 or 9 of a citrus orchard's growing season, for example, instead of sending people out into the orchard to measure a given number of trees and their fruits throughout the season to get an idea of what sizes they can roughly expect when it comes to harvest time, this is now being replaced with drone technology through a fruit finding and sizing model. So what's important here is that we give you a distribution of the sizes of the fruit that we see, and then the projection towards your harvest date and when your peak harvest time will be. So for example, certain citrus cultivars require certain sizes to hit your peak revenue. So you can lock in a deal with your suppliers saying that you're expecting to get roughly 2 tons worth of oranges at 60 millimeter size with a high confidence level. We have about a 90% plus level accuracy with our Yield Insights product. And to put this in context, the Asian market, for instance, the easy peelers citrus, it's actually called the lunchbox effect. And that market wants citrus that can fit into a lunchbox. Anything bigger or smaller than that is not of value to them. So even though you may be producing fruit that is bigger in size than the expected size, it actually may be less valuable because that's not what the market wants. So this is a really great way our product can help growers with that, telling them when is the best time to harvest their fruits to hit that peak revenue and to improve their operations. It's just an example of some of the awards we've won in the past with NBC, Innovator of the Year, Google Developers Launchpad, top 10 most innovative companies with Fast Company, best technology company in Africa with Tech Week, and the most innovative African startup with Africa Arena.
Right at the beginning, where the process starts is there are, let me say, 4, separate individual approvals that one require. The first one being a CFR, which is a certificate of registration. This would be, approval that you receive from CA, which is issued for each and every drone that you operate within the organization. And what the certificate of registration signifies is, this drone belongs to who and the identity of this drone is similar to your car registration. And then on the right, you have RLA, which is a letter of approval. I can define that as, a piece of paper that says your document, your aircraft or your drone is airworthy, right? So letter of approval also, it's a piece of paper approval that has been issued by the Civil Aviation Authority and is for individual for each and every drone that you fly within the organization. And then your RPL, this is what we, commonly known and well understood approval in the industry, which is your pilot license, which is a license that is issued to each and every pilot who flies drone within organization. And then we have an RMT, which is a RPAS maintenance technician. This would be people who are being given responsibility to do maintenance on your drones. However, RMT it's only applicable or required if your operation is class 3 and higher. And then once you have all those documents in place, then you go to the higher, approval, which is your ROC, which, if you go around this industry, you understand that anyway, the ultimate would be your ROC, which is your RPAS operator certificate. And RPAS operator certificate is a license that is issued to an organization, right? And for CAA to issue RPAS, operator certificate, you need all these approvals that I've indicated at the bottom. They all go into, they are all inputs into your ROC, and of course with other documentation such as your operations manual, your safety manual, your quality manual, your procedures, your security manual and all that. So all those documents, you put them together, submit to CA, and then CA will issue your RPAS operator certificate. And airpass operator certificate is applicable whether you are doing commercial, corporate, or non-profit operations. Now, the only difference would be for commercial, you need one additional approval, which would be your service license that is issued by a Department of Transport. Right? And then on your right, you have your private operations where you don't need any piece of paper, you don't need any license from CAA. However, there are restrictions which are applicable. And then the last one obviously would be your training school. Where do you start? This is a very most important question. And where I say you need to start is you need to start looking at yourself first and understand that in this drone industry, your expertise and interest should be a starting point. You don't walk around looking for opportunities, but firstly, you must say, what is it that I'm good at? Where are my expertise? And that's how versatile drones are. Your expertise, you can definitely have something to offer in drone industry, right? And then this is exactly the statement actually that Chris mentioned earlier, and I thought maybe it's because he saw my slides, that don't search for careers in drone, but what you need to do is you need to bring your skills and expertise and passion to the drone industry, and that's how you start it, in drones. And then in terms of drone business, I don't remember who actually mentioned this right at the beginning of this. I think it was Mr. Feinstein, if I remember well. At the end of the day, drone is a tool. Drone is an equipment. It's not. You still need to have your business case. You still need to know what service are you going to offer. You still need to know where you fit in within the ecosystem. So the basic principles of starting business, they still apply, right? And as basic as you understand them, they still apply. Just because you have a drone in your hand, just because you have a pilot license, just because you're ROC, doesn't mean you're going to go out there and make a killing. You still need to conduct your business. You still need to run a business. That remains in place. I think the last one, there's a last one that is missing. And the last one, in terms of legal compliance, it's quite important to note and understand that CA has a mandate, and most often that mandate has absolutely nothing to do with the organizational aspirations. And the reason why I'm saying that is most people, they go to CAA, they sell business case to CAA, not realizing that CAA is there for aviation safety. Yes, it's well and good that you have a good business plan, you have a good business idea. At the end of the day, you really need to, when you have a conversation with CAA, understand that they are there for aviation safety. With your business case, a brilliant business case and your idea, you also need to take into account that there's a legal compliance and there's aviation safety that you need to take into account.
You start at the problem. What problem are you trying to solve, and whose problem is it? Sometimes I've been in. Sam will know that we've come up with an idea, only to realize that idea to solve a problem, only to realize that that problem is not that person's problem. That person is probably maybe the customer, but it may not be the user. You might be talking to a municipality, but the user is an engineering company or the contractor. You probably might want to talk to the contractor as opposed to be talking to the municipality. So we always say, look, we got to start at the problem. And if you are able to nail the problem and your solution that fits that problem so that you achieve what we call problem solution fit. The greatest story, I'm glad we got Brett here. The greatest story out of South Africa is aerobotics.
As a South Africa, we really need to start moving forward. Yes, we were one of the first countries to have regulations, which were part of our formal legislation, and we were happy about that. But look, that was back in 2015. Many years have passed since that, and a lot of countries, they have then learned from what we've done in South Africa and quickly realized that there are certain areas where we made mistakes. And I must say that we all understand that our regulations, they have challenges here and there, because at the time there was not really anyone to look at as a country to say who has done it first and then what kind of mistakes that they've done, and then let us learn and move on from that. So it's really a time, and I'm saying this, to our regulator, and I will say regulators as a matter of fact, including our political masters. We really need to start moving forward where we say we need to move to a point where drones work for us. Drones, they contribute to the economy because they have that potential to do that. And one of the things where we need to start is our regulatory environment. We need to start adopting different ways of regulating drones, because one thing that we all agree is yes, CAA is there for aviation safety. The process is, whether it's ROC, the pilot license, getting your drone RL8, they are all for aviation safety. However, how we also need to look at aviation safety is not each and every drone operation out there will cause, similar type of risk. Risk depends on the operation itself. So we need to start scaling or start categorizing our, requirements to say, for this type of operations, yes, the risk is high, aviation risk is high. One may need ROC, but there are certain operations where you don't necessarily need complicated processes, and for you to operate safely. There are certain, take an example with pilot license. Yes, it's a formal license that has been issued by the CAA, so hence the reason the regulations or the process are a little bit strict. However, we need to then have another type of license where we say, someone has, read, maybe there's a material that they read and they understood and they write an examination. It can be an online examination so that they have basic understanding. And for that basic type of understanding, then they're able to operate within given areas, type of operations, because like I said, not all operations will be risky. So that's the next step that we need to move as a country to make sure that we unlock drone potential in this country, to make sure that we realize the benefits that drones offer. Otherwise, we'll be in this position for a very, very long time where we are not opening this industry for more opportunities, as a result of drones.
Suffice to say that there is a need for women to get into this industry, and it so happens that the drone industry, particularly drone service providers, they operating and they're at the mercy of industries that are very male dominated. You got your construction industry, you got the mining industry, and they find them in that space. So it's in some instances, the drone industry would get sucked into that environment. From our side, we're training about 60 drone pilots this year in partnership with Teacher, but more than half of them are women. And we're trying to say, look, these graduates, they'll come out there and do something as far as this industry is concerned. And we found that they're doing very well from a starting point of view. But obviously, they will hit their glass ceiling when they get into the industry. And it's not only the industries where drones are operating in, it's just the drone industry itself per se that still has these artificial barriers. Not only for women, it's worse when you're a woman and you're black, because these barriers will always be there. So there's still a lot that needs to be done, and probably the challenge is more on the customers and people who are adopting drone technology, and also ecosystem builders like SEDA and EDSC to be intentional. And I know they're doing it, but maybe we need probably even more.
In all honesty, there are so many women moving into your fields, your mining, your engineering, your agriculture, and the growth potential for women in drones and in these industries is immaculate. It's brilliant. When I look at how many women are actually coming in fact, our head of training is a female. She's been with DSL since they started, and she's phenomenal. There's so much scope for females as well, in the sense of we are a little bit more sensitive to the smaller touches. And when I say that men like to fly the big planes, we are really good at the little things. So we do pay more attention to certain things, but there's so much scope for it. Photography, marketing, even I've seen women in construction now. It's going to grow and grow and grow, and it's great that you are bringing in more females to train. We are also looking at going with the SEDA to include a lot of women in drone training. It's a massive potential market, and there's a lot of young ladies out there who don't actually know that they can do it. And what we'd like to do is see more careers, training and development to actually get more females into the industry in both manned and unmanned aviation, actually.
Oh yes, I mean, if you go back, as a matter of fact, a lot of drone operators in South Africa, that's exactly where they started. And I always say, as a matter of fact, if you look at such areas, generally are outside of urban or populated areas, and then that really becomes, a sandpit in a sense that even from risk point of view, aviation risk point of view, things have become a little bit easier, and you can really find a way to be different and to do something unique, in that space. So definitely, and one thing that we also know and understand with drones is, drones can be applied almost everywhere, almost any type of industry. You just need to go in and understand what is the real need in there, and what is it that guys are struggling with, and then what kind of value will you add, when you go to those kind of areas. So I would say definitely one can apply drones in almost any type of industry. Almost any.
I think the problem with the illegal use of drone technology is that obviously it's poor enforcement of regulations on the one hand. However, I once spoke to a gentleman who comes from the gambling industry. He said their strategy in the gambling industry, if they are the legal operators, they take it upon themselves to root out illegal operations, to work with the police and root out illegal operations. And for me, if you are an ROC holder who has been through the process that we know, I mean, Sam can tell you how agonizing that process can be. You've gone through that process and you got your ROC, you made sure that all your drones are RLA'd, you got a license, pilots, for someone to just be able to fly. And they're doing it, by the way. They're doing it. You found some of these reputable companies. So I think the ROC holders need to gang up and expose these illegal operations, if they want to protect their industry. Because if they think SAPS and the CAA will protect them, I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, you ask a SAPS guy if you see an illegal operation. First of all, they don't even have a charge code.
Everybody's mentioned mining and agriculture and engineering. However, I think that there's a lot more that we haven't even touched on yet, like surveillance, security, mapping, photography, construction. There's so much growth, and the thing is, with our drones increasing in size and everything becoming so autonomous, there's always still the need for our human maintenance and supervision. So the opportunity is there, we just need to start working on it. Even if you look at logistics solutions, for example, the blood drop-offs at the moment, vaccination drops is a huge potential opportunity, which is, there's nobody doing it yet. Well, one or two people are started, but it's not, there's so much growth potential there. Medication drops, especially in a third world continent like Africa. The opportunity here is even bigger, I think, than in some of your first worlds, because there's no other way to get to some of these places.
I think when you look at it and what is happening in the space in South Africa and throughout the globe, then definitely we see that this is work for the future, and that there's so many jobs that could be created with drone development and drone technology.